Thank you for joining us for 10 Minutes with the Artist, an episodic series that explores the art practice and personal vision that guides artists. On today's episode, we're very proud to have Meghan Kirkwood, who exhibited her recent artworks at the 2016 faculty exhibition at the Memorial Union Gallery at North Dakota State University. Meghan's photographs are part of a series that document her father with an element of stoicism in spaces that are personal and in situations that the artist appears to relate to the identity and character of her subject. These portraits speak to familial relationships, identity, and transitions of who we are and what we do as we go through different phases of our lives. I'm Anthony Ferris, and this is 10 Minutes with the Artist. Thank you so very much, Meghan, for joining us on 10 Minutes with the Artist. So, although the figure is a central part of the imagery, the surroundings have a lot of character to them. And I was wondering, in your relationship to the work, is the figure necessary for these?
I think the figure is necessary, but I think I could make that series without pictures in them, without figures in them. In the larger series that this comes from, I do have some pictures of the landscape and the house and other things that don't have anyone in them. So some of those shots do they echo atmospheres that are presented in some of the scenes, and I think they do some of the job of what the images would do if they didn't have any figures in them. But yeah, there's a lot to them. I mean, there's certainly a lot to look at them. There's a lot going on in there that is interesting, or I mean, it's certainly interesting to me in and of itself.
Yeah, the work can come across as sometimes humorous, and sometimes sort of unexpected. But there's also this sort of like sense of fragility in them, and I think it's because the man in the imagery is older, and sometimes he's working, sometimes he's exploring. And even though he seems very confident in what he's doing, when I'm viewing this work, sometimes I sort of worry about his ability in this sort of like scope because of his age. I was curious sort of what your sort of feelings were on that.
Well, I think it's really great that you're perceiving that. I mean, that's a huge part of what I was trying to capture. This figure in the images is my father, and what I wanted to do with these pictures was explore the topic of aging, and I wanted to explore the topic of aging in a way that wasn't just about melancholy and about degradation, because I think aging, I mean, for anybody who has an aging parent, they know that they're just the same person, they're just in a different body. Some of the things that they can do is a little, or not in a different body, but some of the things that they used to be able to do, they just can't do to the same degree anymore. But their humor, their character, their spirit is still it's still the same, or it still feels the same. And so I wanted to play with that idea, not as so much an idea of loss, but just an idea of something kind of an exchange, where I wanted to make portraits that gave equal weight to the character of a person and the strength of that character as they did to this idea that there is some kind of dwindling or some kind of fragility, certainly, or vulnerability. I really like that word. But I don't want that to be something cast in sadness. A lot of work I've seen related to aging or just parents or families is just so heavy. And I'm just not interested in making work that's that. I don't think it has to be this weighted thing. It can be kind of... I wanted these to be playful at the same time that they revealed something that's layered and complex as it relates to me personally. So
I was kind of curious about this sort of feel of the images. So when I'm looking at them, I feel like there's a stoic figure, and he's doing things that sort of harken back at a different time, almost like a time when, like, there were like unknown lands, like he's sitting there doing research, or he's going out exploring. And even though a lot of the imagery is contemporary, it sort of like speaks back to this sort of like a different time period. So I was kind of curious if this does belong to a different time or sort of...
Yeah, I could easily say, I think I was trying to make them timeless in some way, and by making them seem a little disconnected to the current time, or trying to set them in a fantastical space. I think I borrowed upon visual metaphors that certainly are associated with other time periods, right? Or like you use the example of an explorer or someone who's a Renaissance man from an earlier era, or something that would have been represented in early, like 18th century, 19th century artworks, paintings. So, yeah, I mean, I think I was very concerned that it would be a fantastical space as much as it is a real space. I mean, those pictures are home, like they're real places. I mean, I did some doctoring to the spaces as part of the construction of the scene, or, you know, what I asked my father to wear, but they're still all real. That's still all his stuff, you know, so it's the deer antler picture. I mean, that he just found that. I mean, it's all real. At the same time, I wanted it to look very contrived.
Yeah. Well, like when you put all of them together, it just seems like he's like as you said, like a Renaissance man, or like a master of different categories, different traits. So because this is sort of like deeply personal, I find that sometimes our understanding of the people that we're around can sometimes be sort of kind of narrow. And so what part of your the character of your father do you feel like you got right on, and maybe like what parts do you feel like you haven't sort of explored yet, or that you haven't sort of broached?
Well, I approached this whole project as a collaboration. I wanted it to be, so it kind of would start out, I was at home helping my father with a couple of different things. So I was there for about 2 weeks making this series. Well, I was there for other reasons, obviously, but we'd start out and I'd say, okay, well, I want to make a photo shoot, and this is, I want it to involve like vacuum hoses. And he would say, okay, well, let's, we'll play with the vacuum hoses. And so I'd start by bringing them out, and then this isn't a picture that's in the exhibition, but I'll just talk about it anyway. I'd layer them throughout the stairs, and I put them around, and I'd get them just the way I wanted to, and I'd put him in the scene. And then I would just say, well, why don't you wear one? Or I'd say something that would take it beyond him going into a scene to him, like, taking some maybe weird turn within the scene that, and he would usually do it. My father would never tell me no. I don't think he told me. I never asked for anything that was totally outrageous, but I was surprised at all the things that he said yes to, or the times that he would suggest something that he could do. I took a picture of him with archery gear that he made as himself, and he wanted to string up the bows, and he wanted to have all the arrows that he had made, and he found them in the basement, and he brought things to it that I didn't know he would. So I think the things that are unexplored for me are really just how far he would go to play kind of make-believe with me. I don't know. I didn't push it as far as I could, probably, in part because I was sort of surprised at what even happened. So if I did this series, in the next summer or something, if I revisited it, maybe I'd start from a different premise and see how far he would go. And when I say how far, I mean, who knows? Maybe he would build a set. Maybe he would, I don't think it would be like a weird how far, but just a new dimension to things that I don't know. So that's kind of nice. It's nice to be able to work on a series with surprises on it. I don't usually get the chance to do that. I don't usually work with people. I usually don't photograph people. Yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah. Well, at the end of our interview, we like to ask a few questions about sort of creative practice. And I was curious what time of the day you feel like you're most creative?
I think probably in the morning. Probably say in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah. I like mornings. I feel like I have the potential to get anything done. At night, I usually don't.
Yeah. Very helpful. I love it. Do you listen to music or anything like that when you're making work?
I guess it depends on what process. So with photography, there's a lot of boring parts to the work if you're doing a lot of color correction or masking or things that don't really need a lot of thought. Or for me, they don't really need a whole lot of thought. So I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. If I'm developing film or in the darkroom, it's all podcasts and audiobooks. But if I'm needing to concentrate, I just listen to Peaceful Piano. It's a wonderful playlist on Spotify. I recommend it.
All right. I will make a playlist.
Yeah. Peaceful Piano.
Yeah. Is there anything that you're reading right now?
Yeah, I'm reading a biography about Diane Arbus. Who's a really important American photographer, had a very short life, very prolific career for a very short period of time. So she's someone I've always known about and read various about, but this is a new full-length biography about her I like. So, yeah. And the pile of New Yorkers that I never finish.
Yeah.
They're just piling up.
If you had to work in any other medium besides photography, what do you think you would work in?
I think, well, like publicly, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I probably would do painting, I guess. I really like to paint, but I'm really bad at it. So it's just a private thing I would do.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess my last question would be, what's next?
What's next? I need to finish the series, and I'm working on a series tracing the path of the Dakota Access Pipeline in North Dakota. So I've been following just what landscapes it goes through. I think a lot of people have no idea what a pipeline looks like when it goes through a landscape. So it's not meant to be a political series per se, just an awareness one about what kind of pipelines look like in the land or when they're being installed.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much, Meghan, for joining us today. And I'd like to thank you all for your time and your interest in the professional practice and the creative explorations happening here at North Dakota State University. So thank you. And for everyone here at the Memorial Union Gallery, keep creative.